Okay. We'll have the July meeting of the Public Safety Committee come to order. Motion to approve last month's minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, privilege of the floor. Anyone here for privilege of the floor? Anyone here for privilege of the floor? Not seeing anyone, we'll close privilege of the floor. Number 1, proposed resolution authorizing contract with Chautauqua Lake Central School District for fueling of county motor vehicles. Todd, I guess that's you.
Good afternoon. Todd Thomas, Assistant County Attorney from the Chautauqua County Law Department. This is a resolution covering, at this time, Office of Emergency Services and Department of Health for that wonderful new mobile health unit in the parking lot have both expressed a need for fueling in the Mayville area. Chautauqua Lake Central School is allowing us to work off their bid price plus 3 cents a gallon for county vehicles. At this time, it would be the 2 departments that I previously mentioned, but we've also looked into, I've also written into the resolution an authorization for additional, as they come needed, to be added by the county executive instead of revisiting the intermunicipal agreement every time we bring this forward, if that's acceptable.
Todd, that's covered in the last resolved.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Committee, questions of Todd? Todd, I've got just one question.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so emergency services, health department, what is the sheriff's department doing currently?
To be honest, I don't know.
I should have called you first. Okay.
Yeah, I am not sure what they do in this area for fueling.
Okay. At one time, I think they went to Sherman to fuel up, but I'm not positive.
I can confirm that, and I'll let you know.
Okay. But it makes sense to have any department be able to just go, what, half mile down the road for fueling? Oh, is it that way? Chautauqua Lake? No, it's that way, I think.
That way.
Bob.
Yeah, just past the school that way.
Right.
Yes.
He's from Dunkirk. He doesn't know east from west. Okay, there you go.
We just know north and south.
North and south, that's all we know. It makes sense. Okay, and the 3 cents is just administrative costs or surcharge for?
Yes.
Okay,
Surcharge for the school and their administration and related.
okay.
A lot of municipalities use a program called WEX, where you get each vehicle is assigned a card, like a gas card, where you can go to any quick fill or country fair or whatever and be able to fuel up, and then you get a bill from WEX.
Oh, okay.
That's how the city of Dunkirk was set
Okay.
up when I was the DPW director there.
Okay.
That would probably make sense for the sheriff's department, since he's got cars stationed all over the
We
county.
do employ that program as well.
We do, Kitty?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
I got a question. What about the highway department vehicles?
Those are all, they have a fueling station.
They have their own
at
station.
Sherman, Faulkner, and Sheridan.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Branikowski.
Just my field of expertise.
Yes.
We're
It's
just
definitely not mine, so I appreciate
We're
that.
just trying to help you out.
I need all the help I can get, so thank you.
No problem. Okay, committee, anything else of Todd on this resolution? Proposed resolution? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thanks. Todd.
Thank you.
Okay, next one, proposed resolution number 2, authorize agreement with Panama Central School District for school resource officer services 23 through 2024. Well, hello, short timer.
Yes,
This is your
hello.
last meeting.
It is. It is.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Jen, on your new position.
Thank
You have
you.
some big shoes on now.
Yeah,
Ugh,
exactly.
thank you for the
But
reminder.
I know you'll do a job well done. I'm
Well,
sure.
thank you. I appreciate that.
And that's coming from Bob.
That's right.
I know that
So-
makes me feel pretty good.
He doesn't usually compliment people.
Jennifer Swan, fiscal supervisor for the sheriff's office, for one more week anyway. I will say we do, pertaining to the previous resolution, we do have a fuel contract already with Chautauqua Lake Central School.
You do?
We do.
Okay.
We do
All
for our agency, and we do also incorporate the WEX program as Kitty had mentioned and as Legislator Benkoski had mentioned as well.
Okay.
So this is just another SRO agreement for the 2023 to 2024 school year for Panama Central School. I don't know if you have any questions. It's the same
Was this
contract as
one of the
everybody.
original people that, or schools that we had an officer for, or is this like an additional one? Because I know the sheriff said that we didn't have any extra deputies to deploy for SRO.
So this is technically a new contract, but these contracts are fulfilled by a bid, and there is unfortunately there's one contract that we have not had anybody take. So we know that there is a deputy who would like to take on this particular contract, so we agreed to fulfill it, and we're going to keep working on the other one.
Committee, anything else, Jen?
Is this the first time that Panama's had an SRO?
I
You know.
believe it is. In my 6 years, this is a new contract. I don't know prior to that, but I could certainly look and let you know.
I was just curious.
Okay.
Jen, I was thinking that Panama did have an SRO at one time,
Did they?
but it's been years, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can
Um,
certainly check.
Okay. Well,
Wouldn't take much.
you want her to check down or?
No, that's okay. I was just
Okay.
curious, and I
We're all set.
really support
Okay.
this, so it's a good idea.
Yeah, the SROs in school were very supportive of that. role
Absolutely.
committee. I'm pretty sure. Okay. If nothing else, committee, those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks.
Thank
Jen.
you.
Okay, next one. Proposed resolution number 3, authorize acceptance of the gun-involved violence elimination, the GIVE grant funds for 2023-2024.
Good afternoon, committee. Madeline Contaguglia from the District Attorney's Office. So the resolution that I have in front of you today is to authorize the acceptance of the Gun-Involved Violence Elimination Grant, the GIVE grant for short, for the 2023-2023 performance period. This is a grant that we have received for many years before, and it's been assisting our office, the District Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Office, and the Probation Department with the prosecution and the elimination of gun crimes and violent crimes. So in the DA's office, it funds a portion of a assistant district attorney's salary who's tasked with prosecuting firearm and narcotic offenses. In the sheriff's office, it funds partial salary of a field intelligence officer who helps with officer safety for violent crime. It also funds JPD programs related to GIVE, and it helps probation with the supervision of offenders that have been convicted of firearm and narcotic offenses. For this contract, this year, our office was awarded a significant increase to the contract previously. Previous to this contract, we, as a county, had received about $200,000. This year, we were receiving $420,815. So it's a significant increase.
Almost double.
Almost double. Yeah, exactly. The total, I believe, was around $680,000. So JPD was awarded $261,199, and they're going to be executing their own contract with the state. Like I said before, the county was awarded just over $420,000. The district attorney's office portion is $298,700. The sheriff's office is $95,815, and the probation department is going to be receiving 26,300. So each of the agencies' 2023 adopted budget did not include this new amount. So our offices will all need budget amendments, which are included in the resolution. We'd like to increase the DA's budget by 95,500, and we would be increasing our revenue by the same amount. The sheriff's office would be increasing their budget by 68,379 and increasing their revenue by the same amount. And probation would be increasing their budget for 2023 by 13,150 and increasing their revenue account by the same amount. And then the portion that'll be included in the 2024 budget year will be included in our 2024 budgets that are presented to the legislators. I hope that all made sense.
It did. Maddie, so basically, all these departments, district attorney, sheriff, probation, all their accounts are being adjusted accordingly.
Yes.
Based on this increase.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So they'll have no local impact. We're only increasing it by the amount that we were received. So
Understood.
the expenses exceeded what was budgeted, but also the revenues exceeded what was budgeted.
That's good.
Okay, committee, any questions of Maddie on
Just
on
one
this?
thing, I may have misheard, but did you say 95,500 for the DAs or it says 90?
Yeah, 90,500. Sorry, I think I misspoke.
That's fine. I just wanted, just to make sure.
Okay, any other questions of Maddie?
No, I fully support anything to reduce gun violence, and you already answered my questions of how the money was being used, so
Excellent.
So that
it's
was
good. It's a great thing.
Okay, committee, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Maddie.
Thank you.
Okay, number 4, proposed resolution to authorize acceptance of 2023 Crimes Against Revenue Program, CARP funds.
All right, Madeline Cantaglia again for the District Attorney's Office. So the DA's office has been awarded a grant in the amount of $65,000 from the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance to be used in the Crimes Against Revenue program for the period of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st of 2023. The funds are being used to fund a portion of an assistant district attorney's salary that's been tasked with prosecuting revenue crimes. So anything tax law violations, money laundering from municipalities or theft from municipalities, anything that's related to municipal dollars or tax dollars or income tax. It's all financial crimes. And the portion of we had included this revenue into our 2023 adopted budget, so there's no need for any budget amendments. The resolution is just to accept the funds from New York State.
Committee, questions?
I'm in for taking funds.
Yeah.
You
Not
always
gonna-
have.
Not going to question it.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Maddie, thank you.
Thank you.
Tell Jason you did a great job. Where's he, in Warren County, yeah, I guess? Or?
No, not today.
All
You know, things have calmed down
All right.
a little bit for us.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you.
All right, thanks, Maddie. All right, next discussion, reorganization of Finance Department, Kitty Crow. Olivia, do we have that late thing? Haven't seen.
Yeah, that would be.
I like when you're at the top of your game, Gary.
Yep.
Sounds good.
I know, that's what excites me.
Presentation. And Kitty, while we have a second, thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh, sure.
You could do this in front of the legislature, it'd be a lot less time consuming, but I think it's nice that you're coming to the home committees to explain this.
Sure. No problem.
Thank you.
Less
I'm
pressure,
not
too.
sure why it's why
A
it's
lot less pressure.
not
Pretty informal.
yeah. Let's see. Do slideshow. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I just wanted to update you all on a little project we've been working on over the last year or so. This is a presentation that we gave to all the fiscal staff recently, and so I'm not going to go through the entire presentation. I will send it out to all of you afterward, but I just wanted to kind of give you all the highlights and just kind of let you know where we're headed. So kind of starting out with, I'm not going to go through the whole agenda here, but what we've been talking about is restructuring the fiscal staff throughout the county. Currently, I know some of you are a little bit newer, but the fiscal staff reside. We have our core finance team, which handles, the audit of invoices, accounts receivable, payroll, purchasing. The treasury and cash management is all currently within the finance department, and then each department is responsible currently for processing their own invoices, monitoring and preparing their budgets, and things like that. So there can be some challenges with it being somewhat decentralized, and I'll talk about that in why we were interested in considering restructuring the fiscal employees. So one of the concerns that we've seen from our end, and somebody kind of recently described it to me, someone in another department, they kind of said, okay, I get it now. The finance department is kind of the cleanup department because, if there's errors or process things that people don't understand, it kind of ultimately falls on our department, kind of where we'd kind of like to address things more up front in some cases, or just make improvements so that those processes flow more smoothly. So we put together a work group of several employees from multiple departments so we could have a good representation and get a variety of input. And what we found is, we do see inconsistencies in some of the ways that some of the even routine tasks are performed. And we also see there's a lack of a clear promotional track for people working in fiscal positions because of the way civil service works. If you're not familiar with it, there's a lot of rules, and in terms of promotions, if you're promoting from one department to another, there are sometimes some risks if you don't, if you take a provisional appointment, which means you have to wait and take a test at a later date and make sure that you're reachable at that time. If for some reason you weren't, if you're coming from another department, you don't always have rights back to your former position. And therefore, sometimes, especially now, we have so many openings and we've had a backlog of civil service exams since they were not given during, COVID, that a lot of people don't want to take a provisional appointment for that reason. And so then we just are kind of in this limbo a lot of the time where we just can't fill the position until finally the test is given and finally we have a list of the results. We also have a gap in terms of succession planning, with individuals kind of siloed in their departments. We don't have a way of kind of cross-training them on other duties within the overall finance department, or they don't have exposure to how things work or the operations of other departments. And so, when it comes to like a position like, recently we filled the budget director, and we did promote somebody within and somebody from a larger department. But if she had not worked at a larger department, she may not have been exposed to some of the other tasks within the finance department or hadn't had a chance to kind of build up a skill set over time. So we're really focused on that succession planning because right now we do have kind of a gap of, mid to entry level positions and then, some higher level positions, but not a lot in between. We also see that sometimes departments use different job titles for their employees that are doing fiscal tasks. And again, that gets to like when promotional opportunities come up. If you're currently an operations assistant and then an opening comes up for a senior account clerk or a principal account clerk, you're not on the same track, even though you're doing fiscal duties. So we want to, as we get through this process, kind of evaluate and make sure everyone's appropriately classified in a correct title. We also experienced a lot through COVID, but this does happen aside from COVID. People might have an expected medical leave of absence, or they just take another job in another position or promoted, and we just have a gap there. We can't send somebody over from DPF to go help out over in social services when their fiscal employee is on a medical leave. We just don't have that capability within the confines of civil service and union contracts and things like that. So we want to have everyone that's in the department to allow for more cross training, staff development over time. Another area we see is that some of the smaller departments, I'll give the legislature, it could be an example. Olivia and Christy's main duties are not fiscal, but they do process the invoices of your department, help develop the budget and that sort of thing. But that's not, well, they do a good job. It's not meant to be their core competency. So we want to develop a core competency of, fiscal employees and take that burden off of people that really isn't their core competency, but they're tasked with those duties because they're just in a smaller department and they need somebody to do it. We also want to have, in terms of that staff development, we think that the staff could, development could be improved if they're supervised by fiscal people rather than some department heads. Fiscal matters are not their core competency. Emergency services or public safety. That's the sheriff or DA or somebody. They have very focused responsibilities, and to take them away from that or expect them to train their fiscal staff on things is not always. We want them to do other important things rather than that, and then have fiscal people supervising training and developing the fiscal staff people. From our perspective within the finance department, sure, we offer plenty of training. We have a process now, but we really don't have a good way to effectively make change where it's needed. Employees might, have some pushback. You're not my supervisor. Department heads might not want to, their priorities may be different than our priorities sometimes. So, but at the end of the day, we really do need to address things sometimes. So these are just some of the things that we are trying to improve through this process. So like I said, we put a work group together about a year ago, kind of looking at what works, what doesn't work. We also conducted what I'll call a fiscal survey. We asked all the departments heads to identify who within their departments are performing fiscal duties. And that could give us a better insight to like what titles are being used and things like that. Then we did have a couple months ago now meetings with department heads. We initially did kind of have department head meetings just to kind of let them know the general idea of what we are trying to accomplish. But once we got to where we felt we had a more, a better outline of where we wanted to go, we did meet with department heads, kind of said, this is the general plan going forward. We asked them to kind of take another look at those fiscal surveys of who's doing fiscal tasks in their departments and make sure now that you know really what we're trying to do, are there any things that you would want to tweak on those surveys? And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple of minutes. Then after we met with department heads, we gave this presentation to the broader group to kind of start communicating the plan and, just kind of get the ball rolling, so to speak. I know this may be hard to see, but Again, I'll send the full presentation out late at the end of this week after tomorrow. But this, and for some reason this cursor doesn't show it, but for the most part, this is the what will be the new consolidated unit. The other divisions on this org chart are already part of finance. So like budget is generally under the umbrella of finance. So it does, the budget director is appointed by the county executive. So there's a dotted line there. Treasury and accounting, that's like, Todd, the general ledger, the audit, the cash management, payroll, accounts payable processing and things like that. Purchasing is already, we went through a centralization of purchasing a little more than a year ago. And then risk management, that's a liability program and workers' comp program, that's Dennis. And then systems administration is Shannon Harrell. She leads kind of all of our fiscal software maintenance and administration. So I'm just going to blow up on the next level here. So the outline that we're striving toward now is to transfer the positions from the departments, or it's technically transferring the duties. And I'll talk a little bit more about what's involved in that transfer process. But what we've put together are, I'll call the Division of Fiscal Management. So this division would be primarily focused on assisting departments with budget planning and analysis, invoice processing, and claims and billing. So those boxes down below represent categories of work. They don't represent necessarily units or number of people. It's just a category of work that will be performed under each subdivision. And we've formulated each subdivision to mirror the legislative committees. So we did blend PED in with administrative services because PED is only one department really. So we didn't need to have a whole separate subdivision for them. But the idea would be that the head of each of those subdivisions would have the direct line, dotted line to the department head. So the department head would still have their person, their people, and would have the assurance that, they were not, totally moving them out of their offices or anything like that. We still want them to have their dedicated go-to person, and at the same time have a level of responsibility. So the top of this division, the Director of Administrative Services, and will be really focused on that staff development, consistency of process, reviewing all policies and procedures, and then ensuring those are followed throughout this organization. That title was previously Val Liss's title. We were able to still within the job duties of that title, just kind of elevate the umbrella of responsibilities. They're generally the same responsibilities, but just for more departments now, so to speak. So, as an example for public safety, and another caveat here. So with respect to the sheriff's office sheriff being an elected official, we also have a couple of probably other one-offs just because of, the different, him being an elected official will be kept, his fiscal unit will stay with the sheriff's office. What we're going to look at is a dotted line reporting from that fiscal unit into this subdivision here, so that they can take more direction in terms of fiscal matters from the finance department, but we'll keep that a dotted line at this point just because the nature of him being an elected official.
Are you the same as the district attorney also?
No, we're not going to, because they don't have like the sheriff's office has kind of a whole fiscal unit, whereas the DA, PD, emergency services, they don't have as big a unit. There's not really, like the DA and the PD are not necessarily going to have someone, a whole person that transfers over. So we may have to maybe just have one person of all those departments that ends up transferring and will be responsible for the various other departments. But the DA so far has not wish to continue those responsibilities. The county clerk, we've talked to him. The sheriff's just a little different because it's such a bigger operation, and they do have, you know, a dedicated fiscal unit. So we'll just work to have that dotted line reporting structure so that we can still achieve the goals in terms of consistency and process and things like that. We still have to investigate as well another kind of one-off, although I haven't heard any objections as of yet. But you know, there may be some differences when it comes to some of the sewer districts because they have a board, so their board may have to, you know, make an approval, or we may do it as like an agreement of service type of situation. But as we move forward, we'll just iron out those details as we go. And just the other grant administrator title on this chart is just something that's being contemplated. It's would be more the idea for that position would be we don't have any central person that manages or I'll just put it this way. If one of you asks us, what are all the grants that we have countywide, we wouldn't be able to just run a report and say here. So we'd like to get to a point, and I'm aware of a couple other counties that have more of a central grants coordinator position, and that position can assist departments with, you know, a lot of grants might have standard content and statistics that are part of the grant application and can assist with that, help us research grants that we want to apply for, but also just be that. And we also have various portals in which we have to submit applications and claims. ARPA falls under this category, opioid settlement. That's kind of across departments. So we'd like to have somebody that can kind of pick up all those duties. Currently, like Todd is the system administrator for the Grants Gateway to keep track of who has permissions and that sort of thing. But I don't necessarily think that's an appropriate duty for Todd, but somebody had to do it. So not this Todd Button. So there's a variety of things that we think that would help improve our you know, grants oversight and even potentially, you know, apply for research other grant opportunities. There's also a process currently where any grant any department seeking a grant over $100,000 has to seek approval by the county executive before applying, just to make sure it's a grant that we are, you know, in agreement that we do want to apply for, because it's a lot of work to apply for a grant. And so this position could potentially, you know, assist with that process and kind of vet out some applications and help the county executive.
Will that be a new employee, or is that like going to be
It's likely to be a new title, although I'm not positive. We do have a grants. I do think we do already have created one, I think last year, actually. It might be the same title, but it could be filled internally, potentially. So, but overall, this transition is not intended to necessarily reduce staff, and we are, our goal is to not increase staff. It's really just to transfer the function and the oversight of the existing positions.
So, Kitty, do we have a grants administrator?
There is, well, some departments have, I think, like social services or I don't know if it's social services or health or mental hygiene. One of the human services departments has somebody who, yeah, they do the grants and things like that for them.
I think so too.
But we don't have somebody that looks at all grants
For the whole county.
for the whole county.
Okay.
And that's what we want, because we feel there's enough of duties that we could assign somebody to, and with the, like Kathleen has been performing the ARPA administrative duties, and she'll just be with us through, you know, she's continued on part-time, and she's going to wrap up the next report for us and stay on through August to do that. But, and we'll temporarily transition that to Steve Dando, but I think that having, if we end up filling this position, that ARPA administration could, fall under this person. Also, the opioid settlement funds, there's any number of those settlements, and there's a portal that you have to go on to see when the payments are coming and things like that. And
There's restrictions and everything else.
yeah, and so to have somebody dedicate, and that's not just specific to one department, that's kind of a county-wide funding. And so, well, who should be responsible for doing that comes to question. And so I think that would be an appropriate responsibility for somebody in like a grants coordinator type of role.
Administrative.
Yeah.
Could they also handle the sewer agent?
Yeah, they could handle any grants that the county as a whole would be, doing. But I mean, the main thing would just be to be able to, we've looked kind of on and off at, software for grants management, and we just haven't had the resources to really get a project like that going. But there's grant software out there, and we somebody in this position could help facilitate that type of implementation to improve our reporting capability with respect to grants. So we do feel that our goals are achieved with this structure. And so kind of the next, as far as the timeline goes, what's going to, so now that we kind of know where we want to go, the process for transfer of function starts with the county executive making an order that the fiscal duties of the county will be performed by the finance department. That's just kind of a general type of statement. Once that order is made, each department head will then be responsible for identifying who in their department does those tasks. So this order will kind of identify which tasks we're really talking about, because there's some tasks that we're not talking about. A lot of departments think of, time and attendance work as fiscal, because generally some of their fiscal people do that right now. But that's not something that's going to transfer to finance. That's really a supervisory type of responsibility in approving hours of their employees in their department. Requisitions for purchasing are still going to stay in the department, because that was a process we already established to go from a requisition process by the department, and then the finance purchasing department does the purchasing. So once that order is made, the department heads will start to identify their employees that primarily do those tasks. A list would be posted. HR would then need to prepare a notice to each of those employees. Employees do have a right, in a time period in which they accept the transfer. If they decline, there's hopefully no one does, and we don't have, we want everyone to be comfortable with this process. But if they decline, if there's not another position they qualify in the department, it would result in a layoff. And we were, pretty straightforward with people, because I don't want anybody to not know what, the truth of the matter is. But we hope that this doesn't happen. But there may be another position within the department that they can transfer to. And then, on the flip side, if employee thinks, hey, I do those tasks, but my name's not on the list, they have a way of a right to object and say I should be considered too. So that process, takes a little while. You can't transfer you have to give them no less than 20 days notice of the transfer, but we'll probably be giving a lot more notice than that. We had hoped to kind of start this process a little sooner and have that order out by the end of June, but a couple of current musical chairs within fiscal positions, and now the budget has started. So we probably won't get that ball rolling until maybe toward the end of August, early September. So currently, any current vacancies, in the meantime, we're filling we're putting the refill request under finance, so we don't have to worry about transferring that position later. The other kind of hiccup in terms of the timing is, if you don't know already, Ken Westfall in the HR department has submitted his retirement for September. And so their department's going to be kind of in a little bit of a, until they get that position filled. And I don't want to start this process until I know they're ready to do their part, because they're next. So I want to be considerate of that. So
No one's gonna lose their job.
it is not our intent. No. I mean, if the only way it would be if somebody did not accept the transfer, and then there was not a position for them within the department that they could do something different. That would be the only so it is not our intent to anyone to lose their job, and I do hope that everyone that's identified does accept the transfer. So we'll have to see when we start moving ahead. I think we will probably start to do this in groups of departments. So we'll look at all the human services departments, then DPF departments, then public safety. So, or we'll see. So just, it's getting complicated because we have so many openings right now. We do have about 10 different fiscal positions that are currently open throughout the county.
I was going to ask you about that, Kitty, because you mentioned that a few months ago.
Mhm.
Is it still about 10 fiscal positions?
Yeah,
Unfilled?
yeah. And some of it is, we've had a couple recent refill. So the director of administration position, I have actually found somebody for that position. He will be starting next week. And I think he's going to be, I was very happy to, that he applied and he accepted the position, because I think he will be a good in terms of succession planning for a couple of positions down the road. He comes from a public accounting firm and did seem very excited about joining the county. So I'm excited about him starting, and that will also help move this process along, because that will be his main focus is helping with all of this. But for example, another change that you may or may not be aware of is Sam Zafuto, fiscal supervisor for DPF, has taken a position of fiscal supervisor for human services, supporting social services and public health. So that leaves a refill over in DPF. We're currently, getting the paperwork in for that. Jen Swan's position at the sheriff's office needs to be filled. We have two positions, one in health, one in social services, that were somebody transferred to EMS, somebody retired. The tax department has a couple of positions. Although the legal aid, we're going to hold off on that because of the auction foreclosure process being in limbo. We have another senior account clerk in finance. DPF has a senior account clerk position, and probation just had a retirement not end of last month. So, and we've pretty much exhausted the existing list for some of these, or don't have a list. So they're going to be, advertising
New testing.
new tests. Even if somebody comes in provisional, they're still going to have to take that test in the future, pass it, and be reachable.
Yeah.
So that test might not be given for a year from now. So some people, they it's a risk for them depending on what type of employment they currently have. So it does get, it's a challenge in recruitment right now.
Okay. To Bob's point, we're not losing positions, but we're not creating a lot of new positions either. It's
No,
kind of-
they're just
kind of
vacancy
a wash.
refills. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot
So.
of these people that may be getting displaced or whatever probably have a little wind of this, so they should be looking at some of this stuff.
Well, no, I wouldn't say no one's going to be displaced in terms of losing their job with the county,
No,
but
I meant
yeah.
displaced from whatever department they're in now.
Correct. And so, yeah, I meant to mention this. This was a big, so when I send this, you'll see there's a bunch of FAQ at the end of this presentation. And the number one question everyone asks throughout this press, well, where are we moving to? and really nowhere. You're more than likely going to stay where you are right now. Down the road, I'm not going to make any guarantees that we wouldn't look to co-locate some fiscal groups. But for the most part, the majority of positions are already here in Mayville, and the only fiscal positions that are outside of Mayville are, DPF and the sewers. So, it does make sense to have people, kind of in the unit where they are now, to communicate and, facilitate, the understanding of the operations of the department. But we still want to be able to create a finance team and a sense of a finance team too. So we'll be working on that as we go forward. So we'll keep you updated as we move along. But thanks for taking the time to listen.
Thanks for sharing.
Okay. Kitty, just to summarize, the county's fiscal affairs right now are kind of decentralized, if you were. We're proposing more centralization,
Yeah. So,
more or less.
yeah, I mean, you can
Okay.
look at it that way. And to add on to that, a department head, had some questions for me, and really, that department head asked, well, who's going to make the decisions about my budget? And I said, you are still going to make the decisions about your budget. It's you are responsible for your budget, but finance is going to make decisions on maybe how we enter that budget information or how we process the invoice to be paid.
Okay.
So that's where I kind of draw the lines. The department heads are definitely going to be responsible for their budgets and speaking to them, and they'll still have their person that helps them to figure out and what their trends are and what's a
Yeah.
good thing.
So the processing of those invoices from department to department will be more uniform, I guess.
That is our hope. Like, I mean, it's things aside from invoices, but yeah, it's really just,
Okay. I'm
yeah,
just
but
using that
but
as
it
an
is a good
example.
example because it's
Okay.
all departments have invoices that get processed. So it's an easy one to use. But, and then there's some departments where, they do it so infrequently, then they don't remember how they did it last time. Then they're calling somebody in finance, how do I do this? And so that's just, I think I'm really hopeful that will improve a lot of efficiencies.
Okay.
Were there biggest concerns? You said location and department.
Employee concerns. Yeah, I mean, that was probably the biggest concern was the location, and so we did talk about that in the meeting. There was at least the whole room was full here when we gave the presentation. Some people were concerned about like seniority rights after everyone transfers in, and then say a new promotion comes up. Another concern was when I brought up the fact that we wanted to ensure that titles are being used consistently. I thought that'd be a good thing, but then a concern, that I hadn't thought of that came up is like, well, if you're going to change my title, do I have to take a test again? So, there's a lot of things to think about as we go forward, but, my intent is not to displace anybody but we want, I'm looking at it more that there'll be more promotional opportunities than there are now. And so I think at the end of the day, I think as we start to move forward, we'll have more meetings and things and answer more questions as they come up. But you can't always anticipate what all the questions will be.
But also a lot more uniformity
Mhm.
besides.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
think just, and just efficiency too. It'll reduce even at the budget director level. When Kathleen came on board and, she was really good at her job at the sheriff's office, and I don't want to say that anyone isn't good at their job, but I said, a lot of people need a lot of help because fiscal responsibilities, budgeting, forecasting is not their core competency. And so if we can develop that, it's not going to take as much time away from a person in a budget director position, because we want them to be focused on other things, or more time for other projects. And, likewise with Todd at year end, he's trying to explain what an accrual is to people year after year after year. again, because that's just not their court. They do it once a year, and then by the next year comes around, oh, how do I do this again? And so, we want to, it's just,
Makes sense.
okay.
Okay, committee, any other questions of Kitty? All right, Kitty, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, with that, let's see, Olivia, anything else? No? Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion
Mr.
to
Chairman?
adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Oh,
might,
I'm sorry.
I'd like to share something with the committee.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Pierre Chagnon, Chairman of the Legislature. And this is something that you and Bob may already have in your email, but I received notification today, as well as yourselves and the county executive, by a letter from the New York State Defenders Association dated yesterday, and it was addressed to Nathaniel Barone. It reads, "Dear Mr. Barone, Wilfred R. O'Connor was a founding member of the Defenders Association and its president from 1978 to 1989. His beliefs were clear. Every defendant, regardless of race, color, creed, or economic status, deserves a day in court and zealous, client-centered representation. He believed in making a difference, one life at a time, through mercy, justice, and compassion. In 2004, the New York State Defenders Association Board established the Wilfred R. O'Connor Award to remember Bill and honor his sustained commitment to the client-centered representation of the poor. It is with great pleasure that I inform you that you have been selected as this year's recipient of the award." And Ned was kind enough to pass along his comments to us that I would like to share as well. Hmm?
You know how that goes.
Yeah, this isn't going to take an hour.
This is a short version.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I'll only read part now. Of course, I'm extremely humbled and honored that I have been recognized with this award and the recognition by my fellow defense attorneys throughout New York State. But most importantly, I believe that it is a wonderful recognition of our Chautauqua County Public Defender's Office and the outstanding work and commitment of each and every individual who work diligently 24/7 to help each one of our clients and the community as a whole. In addition, I believe it is also an honor and a recognition for Chautauqua County and the tireless efforts of our county administration in working with our Public Defender's Office, New York State Indigent Legal Services, and the New York State Defenders Association in transforming the representation of the indigent of our county and the continuous efforts in making sure that all individuals have equal access to the criminal justice system and the opportunity to be effectively and zealously represented.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for sharing that with us. I had not seen that. It's a nice award. It's nice recognition from Ned, who does an outstanding job for
Well-
indigent people here in Chautauqua County.
Very well-deserved recognition.
It
Yes,
is.
I agree. I wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, with that, anything else, folks, to come before the committee?
Don't forget to check out the health unit.
Oh, yeah. Folks, if you haven't already heard, the health department's mobile unit is in the parking lot.
Very impressive.
I haven't seen it yet. Have you?
Make sure you stop out and see it.
I will.
Impressed.
Okay, with that, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks, committee.
All right.
Okay. Robert, that took a little time. The financing was in there somewhere.